Okay, so in this video, we're going to continue where we left off in the previous video and talk about the other type of special right triangle, which is our 30, 60, 90, okay? And I got something drawn right here, okay? And just like with our 45, 45, 90, there's actually a nice little relationship amongst the sides that creates a ratio, okay? And it all stems essentially from the side opposite this 30 degrees, okay? So this side here, which is going to be the shortest of the three sides of the triangle, it's the shortest leg. I call it the short leg. I'm going to call it X, okay? Now, to find the measure opposite 60 degrees, which is the longer of the two legs, so the long leg, we simply take the length of the short leg and multiply it by the square root of 3. And that's how we find our long leg. Okay, similar to how to find the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90, we multiply the leg by root 2. Here, to find a long leg, we multiply the short side by root 3. Okay, and to find the longest side, the hypotenuse in this right triangle, we simply just double the short leg. So if we double the short leg, that's the length of the hypotenuse. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at an example. So for example, let's say we are giving a right triangle. All right, 30, 60, 90. Not drawing a scale, all right? And let's say that the short leg was 6, okay? Well, to find the long leg, we simply just take the short leg and we multiply it by the square root of 3, which means this side here is 6 root 3. And that's it. That's our long leg, 6 root 3. And to find the hypotenuse, we simply double the short leg, which would end up getting us 12, okay? And that's it. That is our 30, 60, 90, okay? But very similar to how in the previous video we talked about sine and cosine, I want to do the same here. And here we actually have two angles, 30 and 60. So I want to find sine and cosine of both of these angles. So let's do sine of 30 degrees. So sine, remember, is opposite over hypotenuse, which ends up becoming 1/2. So sine of 30 is 1/2. All right. And let's do cosine of 30. Well, cosine of 30, well, that's adjacent 6 root 3 over hypotenuse, which is 12. And this would reduce to 1 root 3 over 2. And that is cosine of 30. But there's two different angles here. There's our 30 and our 60. So let's do 60 as well. So let's talk about sine of 60. And sine of 60 would be opposite 6 root 3 over hypotenuse 12, which is root 3 over 2. And right away, there's a relationship. Sine of 60 and cosine of 30 are the same. And if we did cosine of 60, well, adjacent of 60 is 6. Hypotenuse of 60 is 12, which is 1/2. And cosine of 60 and sine of 30 are the same. So there's a nice little relationship there. Cosine of 30 is equivalent to sine of 60, and sine of 30 is equivalent to cosine of 60. Okay, and let's see if this holds up. Let's do another triangle. I'm going to make this one a little bit more challenging. Okay, actually, I'm going to see if I can go this way. Yeah. All right, so let's say for this one, we got a right triangle. Once again, a 30, 60, 90. Never mind how terrible my triangles are coming out. Once again, let's do a 30, 60, 90. And let's say in this problem you're actually giving that the long leg was 18. Okay. So in the previous problem we were given the short leg. When we're given the short leg, everything is pretty straightforward. Okay, when we're given a long leg, it's a little bit more challenging. All right. Now, to get the long leg, we multiply the short leg by root 3. So somehow, when I did the short leg times the square root of 3, we ended up with 18. And from here, this should look kind of similar to the last video, where we were given the hypotenuse and had to find the length of each leg. We actually end up setting up an equation, and we have to solve it now. And to solve this, we would divide by the square root of 3 which would get us x is equal to 18 over the square root of 3. But remember, you cannot have a radical in your denominator. So I'm going to rationalize this by multiplying by root 3 over root 3, which is going to end up getting us x is equal to 18 root 3 over 3, and that reduces 18 over 3 is 6, so that's 6 root 3. So this side here is 6 root 3. Somehow my color changed, don't really know. All right, so the short leg is 6 root 3, and once we have the short leg, to find the hypotenuse is real easy. We just double it. So we double to get the hypotenuse is 12 root 3. Okay, and just like in the previous problem, I actually want to do sine and cosine of both of these. Okay, so let's do sine. Let's do sine of 30. Now if we do sine of 30, opposite, 6 root 3 over hypotenuse, 12 root 3. The root 3's cancel. 6 over 12 is 1/2. So notice, these are equivalent. And that's because it's sine of the same angle. Sine of 30 degrees is always going to be 1/2 every single time. Let's check out cosine of 30 degrees. If I did cosine of 30 degrees, that's adjacent, 18 over hypotenuse, which is 12 root 3. I'm going to simplify this. 18 over 12 is 3 over 2. And just like in the previous problem, we can't have a radical left in our denominator, or I should say up here, we can't have a radical in our denominator. So I got to go ahead and rationalize this. So when I rationalize this, this becomes 3 root 3 over 6. 3 over 6 is 1/2, so that becomes 1 root 3 over 2. And notice once again, these are the same. And if I did sine of 60, I would get root 3 over 2. And if I did cosine of 60, I would get 1/2. So that are those are some more ratios I believe you should definitely have memorized. It's going to help out a lot. So let's kind of see what happens. So what we just saw is that sine of 30 degrees is always 1/2, and that cosine of 30 degrees is always the square root of 3 over 2. And if we went ahead and did sine and cosine of 60 degrees, we would get the exact same values as we did before. Sine of 60 is root 3 over 2, always, and cosine of 60 is always 1/2. So these are some more trig values I think are definitely worth to memorize, okay? So make sure that you're practicing, make sure you're able to find all the missing sides of these special right triangles. It is very important. It's going to help out a lot once we get to what's called the unit circle, and definitely try to have these memorized, or at least off to the side when we start talking about the unit circle, because we're going to base everything off of not only sine and cosine of 30 and 60, but also of our 45s. Okay, until next time, bye.